Okay, welcome back. Just looking at part 2 of the content on diagnostic assessment for your NCALNE VOC qualification. Okay, this is where we got up to. We need to talk briefly about the TEC's Literacy and Numeracy for Adults assessment tool, commonly known as the assessment tool. So what's the purpose here? What's the purpose of this tool? A couple of things. It's to support the teaching and learning of reading, writing and numeracy. It's to support tutors and educators, and the information there is to inform your training. So it's going to help you identify the strengths and weaknesses of your learners' literacy and numeracy skills. It's going to help inform the programs that you are teaching, that you're creating, and help you match your learners' needs and hopefully the needs of the workplace as well. And final process, another purpose is to track learner progress. So what is the assessment tool? It's an online assessment for literacy and numeracy. There's a paper-based version as well. It's been developed in New Zealand by educators and by the New Zealand Council for Educational Research, and it draws on international expertise. It's pretty robust. We think it's pretty amazing. Uses over 2,000 assessment questions, and they're framed for a particularly New Zealand context. It was trialled on, I think, around 18,000 learners, and each of the question items has been calibrated against the learning progressions, and that's the system that we use in New Zealand for literacy and numeracy. So the tool selects a collection of items, questions, which work together to make up an assessment. And like I mentioned, there is an online adaptive version, which you can do on a computer. You need broadband internet access to do that, of course. And there's also a non-adaptive paper-based version which you can complete with pen and paper. When you administer this to your learners and they complete it, it generates a report, and the report looks like this. Doesn't matter if you can't read every detail on it. If you're in this line of work, you've probably seen these reports. So just looking on the screen there, the most important thing to notice is that there is a score, a scale score at the top, and there's also a step. So this is telling you that this particular learner is step 3 and the scale score is 599. There's also a little plus or minus score there. That's a confidence interval. So in order for this learner to show a significant improvement or decline, they have to score plus or minus 30 on top of the original score of 599. So that's how that works. So other things that you need to know, the graph tells you which questions they got right and which ones they got wrong. The line that goes through there is called a best fit line, so that's where the score comes in. They use the score to calculate the step, and the step is probably the thing that you're going to talk about the most with your learners. Underneath the graph there is a breakdown of the kinds of questions that your learner is getting right and wrong. So the key thing here is that you get the intent of the question rather than the actual question itself. So that's going to help you make some decisions about work that you could be doing with your learner or with your group once you can hopefully identify the trends and patterns in that data. Here's a group assessment report. Once you're an educator in this system, you can generate reports for your whole group. So here we can see there's 10 learners that have completed the training. There's an average scale score, and our learners here are spread between step 1 and step 6, most of them being kind of up in step 4, step 5 and step 6. And depending on the training demands, this is going to tell me, hey, look, I need to work with these 2 or 3 learners that are down here at step 1 and step 2. The others may be able to just get on with the work themselves or need less help. You can also generate group progress reports like this one, and this is called a box and whisker graph, and it just shows you where the main chunk of your learners sit, as well as the outliers at the higher end and at the lower end. You can also see the 2 graphs together. You can tell how much the group have improved on the second score, on the second test. This is a learner progress report for reading, and you can see 3 assessment scores over time. So assessment A, B and C, and this person has improved their score. So these reports are all available to you once you are set up as an educator in this system. Right, You need to have a look at some other examples of diagnostic assessments as well for literacy and numeracy, and we're not going to put them on the slideshow here or on the YouTube clips, but there are handouts if you're part of our group training, and there are also things that there are assessments, diagnostic assessments that you can download, and you can try them out yourself or with your colleagues, and you can adapt them, modify them, or just use them with your learners. So make sure you go to our website, alec.ac.nz, go to section 4 or assessment 4, and have a look at some of the different diagnostic assessments that are available there. There's also a section in your study guide that points you to the pages in the support materials for the learning progressions, where you can have a look at a whole range of different diagnostic assessments. And we really like you to have a go at developing your own. So once you've had a play with some of the examples, and perhaps you've had a play on the assessment tool, we'd like you to have a go at developing your own teacher-made literacy and numeracy diagnostic assessments and questions. And these should be contextualized for your particular trade or the vocational training that you do. So again, dip into the study guide, have a look at the handouts and things that are available on our website, have a look at some good examples for diagnostic assessments, and use those as models for creating your own ones. Another aspect to knowing your learners is using the learning progressions to map your learners once you've got some information, a bit more data on what their strengths and needs are. So we started working with the learning progressions in the last task when it came to mapping the demands of your training, including your resources. And in this part of the course, you're just using those same skills that you started developing last time around to map your learners. So let's just have another really quick look at this mapping process. You can see here I've mapped my task or my text if I'm working with a particular resource or a reading text. And what have I got here? It's a fairly demanding text, and I've mapped it roughly through at step 4, 5 and 6 is the highest demand for vocab and comprehension. Now I'm starting to get some information on where my learners are at, and I can go through and map my learner's ability in here as well. And you can see there's a difference of around about 2 or sometimes 3 steps for this learner compared to the reading task that they have to engage with. So that's quite a big gap, and I might have to do some work with this learner or with this group to ensure that they have the vocabulary and other language that they need to comprehend the text. So another way of thinking about it, my learner ought to be able to function at step 6 for vocabulary, but my diagnostic information is telling me that actually they can only function at step 3. So what that tells me when I look at the learning progressions at step 4, 5 for vocabulary, that tells me this learner or this group needs to know some of the specialized words for my trade or my vocational training. Does that make sense? So your work is to bridge that gap, the gap between where they're at and where they need to be. And that's how you focus your embedded literacy and numeracy training interventions. So it's your job to try and move them from where they're at to where they need to be. Now, once you've got some information from your diagnostic assessments and your mapping, you need to do something sensible with it. So a lot of you will already have learning plans in place for your learners. It might be called a pathway plan or an ILP, individual learning plan, and it may just focus on the content or the unit standards. If that's the case, you need to add in a literacy and numeracy focus, or perhaps you don't have learning plans at all. This is a great opportunity to implement learning plans for your learners, and you can do this on an individual basis, or you can create group learning plans as well. The main point is that your learning plans should be informed by your diagnostic processes and by the learning progressions, and of course just good record keeping. Best practice tells us that you should create learning plans with your learners. Now, it's not always possible, particularly with younger learners, but if you can and you're working with adults and they're happy to sit down and talk about these things, you can set your learning goals together. You get better buy-in from your learners if they are helping you work on these goals, or they're negotiating these goals with you. So Make sure you include some independent learning goals. Make sure you identify the resources that you need to achieve the goals, and very important, put some time frames on these goals as well. And short time frames are fine, but make sure that your goals are not too big. So think of the SMART idea again. Your goals need to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, as well as, of course, with the time frame. And the thing here that you need to know as the tutor is what are the next relevant steps for this learner or for this group in terms of literacy development, in terms of numeracy development. Last thing, you may also need to think about options for referral. You can't do everything, and sometimes your learners have very severe needs, so you need to think about what people, what resources, what organisations can you refer some learners out to. And it could be the case that you have learners with dyslexia or with physical or emotional mental disabilities, and some of those things you just don't have the time or resources to cater to in your classes. So talk to management, talk to your supervisors, talk to other organisations in your community, and see who's out there that you can refer people to. So who can you call when you need to? Thanks very much. Kia ora.